This video will show you how to replace the rear sliding door lock actuator on a Chrysler Town Country. This will be located inside of your rear sliding door. Let's get into it. A quick note about this job, you will find in the kit it came with two of these levers. One of them is attached to the actuator, the other is not. That's so you can swap them out as necessary depending on whether or not you're doing the driver's side or the passenger side door lock actuator. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Now we're going to start along this area where the inside door handle is. There's a trim panel that we have to dislodge. This trim panel is held in place with several push clips, but it also has two bolts on the outside area here, so we're going to be using a T20 to remove each of those. Both of these mounting screws should look the same. You don't have to worry about mixing them up. After removing those, I'm continuing on with a plastic trim tool. We're going to remove this entire trim panel. Now you can make your way pretty much along any side of this. Once you start pulling it away, the rest of it should just slide right out of place. Now as we look inside this area, we can see that there's two electrical connectors. The upper one is for the window switch. The lower one's going to be for the seat heater switch. Let's disconnect each of those. Each of them will have a locking tab. You're going to squeeze it in and pull it out of place. We'll start with the window switch. Locking tabs up along the top. Just a quick inspection of that. No corrosion. Looks good. Moving down to the seat heater switch down in here. Squeeze that locking tab, which is down along the bottom for that one. No corrosion there either. This is all looking good. Now I have my rear sliding door closed because I have to remove this upper corner piece here. For this, we're going to use this trim tool. We're going to start pulling it out and away. It slides in kind of at an angle here. So I like to try to make my way under, and then we'll start pushing it out. All right, there's that. Now, as far as removing this door panel, we're going to have to take hold of it and pull it away from the door, inwards, in towards the vehicle. So I'm going to be down at the front corner here, someplace easy to grab onto. Let's just give this a little tug. As we start separating it, we'll just make our way to pretty much anywhere that we can grab. We're going to have to make our way across the entire door panel. Now down in this area is a very tight area to try to get into, so I'm just going to use a plastic trim tool. Up along the top, we're going to have to lift the door panel up. There's a small ridge here. Once we have it up high enough, we should be able to remove this. Be careful for your wiring harness. We don't want to cause any damage. There it is, friend. A quick inspection and we'll set this aside. Now that we have the door panel out of the way, we'll start removing the inside door handle. In this area, you can see that we have two T20 torque screws that need to be removed. Let's start there. There's our first screw. Both of these will look the same. You don't have to worry about mixing them up. Continuing on, you're going to find that you have three 10mm mounting bolts for this. Let's go ahead and remove all of those. Let's start with the outboard one. Continuing on, we're going to have to carefully power the window down. What we need to do is gain access in this area here and right there. As we power the window down, we're paying attention inside of each of those two ports. You're going to find that the window does mount to the window regulator, and there's going to be one 10mm mounting nut on each one of these areas. So with that said, let's carefully bring the door panel back over. We're going to reattach that window switch, put the key in the on position. We'll carefully power the window down with nothing inside this area where we could get hurt or damage something, and we're paying attention in those ports as I mentioned. So I have my wiring harness with my 2 electrical connectors. I only need to connect my window switch. So I'm bringing the proper connector over, press it in, audible click there. We'll put the key in the on position and we'll function that window switch, as I mentioned, powering the window down with nothing in the way. Perfect. Now once you feel as though you do have this aligned, go ahead and turn off key power. Now we can disconnect that window switch. We'll set that panel aside again. Now at this point we can start loosening each one of our 10mm mounting nuts, one for each port. When you do this, you do not need to fully remove them, just loosen them enough that the window will break free from the window regulator located inside. Continuing on, we're going to have to take hold of the window glass. We'll lift it up as high as possible and we'll have to hold it there with something. I typically use painter's tape. You can use other tools as necessary. Now I've cleaned my window glass, so I have a good area for my tape to stick to. I also have a helper. I'm going to carefully start lifting this window into the fully upright position. My helper is going to hold it for me while I continue on with several strips of tape across the top. Okay. Now we are holding that up. I'm going to be using this tape up along the inside area, down along the glass, up and over. Obviously tape is a lot cheaper than glass, so I'm going to use as much tape as I find necessary. Now that we have the window properly supported, we're back on the inboard side of the door. Now, since we are removing this panel, or at least dislodging it, we want to make sure we do have ample space to be able to do so. So I'm following this wiring harness down along the bottom area here. This is where we can see another electrical connector. For this electrical connector, it does have a small red locking tab. You need to carefully pry up on that. We're not removing it, it should just slide. After that, you can press in on the secondary locking tab and disconnect this. For that, I'm just using a small pocket screwdriver. There we are. You can see that it did lift up, as I said. Now the locking tabs on this side here, I'm squeezing that in. We'll separate these two. At this point, we're going to dislodge the electrical connector and the wiring harness from the door. For this, I'm using a trim tool. We can see the locking tabs there. Next one's behind this cable. This is exactly what we want to see. Let's take this wiring, we're just going to tuck it up in this area. Now, as far as dislodging this plastic panel, you're going to find that there's typically 9 10mm bolts holding this in place, but we've already removed the 2 from the far forward side there. So as we make our way across, we'll continue on with the other 7. We'll start up here. Now for this mounting bolt, I'm just going to leave it in a couple threads after a quick inspection. Let's continue on to all others. All of these mounting bolts will look the same. You do not need to worry about mixing them up. Now we can hold onto that plastic panel. We'll remove our final mounting bolt that we left in there a couple threads. Take hold of the panel and we'll carefully start dislodging it. This panel will not fully pull away from the door. Let's have a look at the inboard side. Now that we have the inner panel semi-dislodged, what I need to do is carefully push in my cables and my rods and my electrical wiring harness into each one of their corresponding ports. While I'm pressing these through, I'm going to be taking this panel and trying to bring it forward. Essentially, I want to make my way inside of this area so I can gain access to that door lock actuator. So for my upper cable here, I can see that I do have a rubber protective grommet. I just want to try to roll that inside of this panel. You can use a small pocket screwdriver, trim tool, or even just your fingers, whatever's easiest for you. Just be careful for any pinch points as you continue on. That's what we want to see. Let's make our way down. Slide that in there. Not much to do with this rod. Let's make our way down to the next area here. Let's see if we can slide this at all. Okay, we do have a little slack. Now we can bring this down. Let's make our way in this area. Now we're going to have to remove two 10mm bolts for the window channel. The window channel is located inside of the door, but the bolts are easiest from on the outside area here with the door open. Now the upper mounting hardware is right here underneath our door hinge. The next piece is located just a little bit further down. There's a small pocket here, and it's deep inside there. Go ahead and remove the pair. I'm going to start with the upper one. We'll fully loosen it, but I like to leave it in just a couple threads as I continue on to the next. Okay. Get this one out up here. Now at this point we would want to dislodge that window channel, but since we're still out here, let's continue on to the three pieces of mounting hardware holding our door latch in place. For these we're using a T30 Torx socket. Now we'll carefully reach inside this area. Obviously we want to be extremely careful for any pinch points, but I do need to hold onto my latch. At this point, while I'm holding this, I can remove that final mounting bolt. This is going to want to drop down. We'll pause out here and make our way back inside that passenger compartment. Just going to use my socket to help me turn this out of here. Now that we have that done, I'm back inside of the sliding door. We're going to take hold of the window channel. It should be able to move around. Now really all we need to do here is be able to move this around enough that we can remove the door latch assembly with our door lock actuator still attached to it. We're going to pivot out into an area that we can gain access to the rest of the hardware here. Just try to make our way through. Obviously, you can maneuver things around as much as you deem necessary. Now we have this entire unit out of the way, let's have a quick look along the back side. Now keep in mind you will still have the door lock rod attached to this. When we pivot this, it may want to become dislodged. That's pretty common here. Just carefully twist this as necessary. And there's our door lock actuator. Let's continue on with the removal process for that. So now all I did here is I quickly slid the rod back into position so you could see exactly what it would look like if it was still in the actuator assembly. For this, you would just want to take hold of the rod and that actuator and carefully separate it. As you know, mine was already separated through this removal process. It pretty much just slid out of there. We're going to continue on with our electrical connector. As far as this electrical connector, it will have a locking tab. Let's just have a quick look along the other side here. I'm turning this over. Now that I have this turned over, we have a clear look at where our locking tab is. For this, you could try to squeeze it in by hand, but I find that it's easiest if I just use a small pocket screwdriver. I'm coming down in this area, I'll gently pry, we'll listen for a click, and we should be able to slide this out of position. No corrosion there. So now there's one T15 Torx head screw that we have to remove. After we've done that, we can lift this actuator up and away from its mounting points. You can see that it has a small ear here and another ear here. T15. There's that mounting screw. Take hold of the actuator, slide it up just as I had mentioned. There it is, friend. At this point, we have the original door lock actuator on the bench next to our brand new door lock actuator. There's one thing that we want to pay attention to. During the beginning of the installation process, I had mentioned that you will have an extra lever. That's so you can use this actuator on either sliding door. Now, what we need to do is just compare the lever itself with the original. As you can tell, since I'm doing the driver's side, I will have to swap this over. It's going to be fairly simple overall. We're using a Phillips head screwdriver directly in the center here. Go ahead and remove that mounting screw. Just a quick inspection. Now we can remove the lever from the actuator. That should lift right up and off of there. Just a quick inspection. We'll set that aside for disposal. Continuing on, we need to swap this over, just as you know. Let's just have a quick look at the other side. Now, as we look in here, you can see that there's several splines. Those need to be aligned with the splines on the shaft. So with that said, let's carefully get this aligned. We'll press it down until it's completely flush and continue on with our Phillips head screw. Now, as I do this, I'm just lightly pivoting it as I continue on, attempting to find the corresponding area that this slides into. It does have a keyway. We have our Phillips head screw. Start it in, snug it up. Make sure that's tight. We'll just make sure this can turn as it should. Let's install this in the vehicle. The next thing I like to do prior to reinstalling my door lock actuator is focus on the door lock rod. I like to make sure I have plenty of movement from this rod for the installation of the actuator, so let's follow that rod all the way over towards the inside door handle. We'll be dislodging it from there. Now, as far as disconnecting this rod, just go ahead and take hold of it. We're going to pivot it so we can gain access to this locking hook. Now, as far as this locking hook, typically you can dislodge this by hand. Just pull on it, slide it off to the side. That just goes around here and prevents it from coming out of place. Now we can take hold of that, remove it. After doing the rod, it's time to start installing that actuator. Before we slide it down into position, let's just have a quick look at the other side of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and spin it. Now that I have it spun, this is exactly what we're looking for right here. You can see this small rod protruding out. That needs to fit into this area of the actuator. Once we have that set, we're going to continue on by pivoting this around again, and we'll make sure everything else is properly aligned, slide it down, and continue on with our T15 Torx screw. So now at this point, I have it aligned with that small stud, so I'm bringing it down into this area here. We can see where our hooked area will slide into its groove. We have a second hook here, and that right there is where that T15 Torx screw will sit. Pressing it down as far as possible. Let's get that screw in place. Once you have it started in, go ahead and tighten it up. Take hold of the bracket and the actuator, attempt to maneuver them around. The actuator should not move around in any way. So we have the electrical connector for that actuator. We're aligning it and we're pressing it down and in. Once it feels as though it's in the proper position, go ahead and give it a tug. We want to make sure it is secure. Now we can focus on attaching the rod to that door lock actuator. It's going to slide directly into this port and we're going to lock it in with this hooked area. Now that we have that secured, just one last quick inspection of this before we start bringing this back up and inside of the door. When we bring it up inside the door, we want to try to align our door latch with the corresponding port on the door itself. Now at that point, it could be easiest if you had a second person to start in those mounting bolts while you're inside holding it in place. So now I have 2 of the bolts started. I'm going to start in the 3rd one here. As I mentioned, this is typically easiest with a second person. The person inside is going to be holding that, lifting it up and down as necessary. You can also help move it around from here. Just be careful for any pinch points. Now that we have that latch bolted in, it's time to start dealing with our window channel. As far as this window channel, we need to make sure this upper portion slides along the rearward side of the window. It's going to go up far enough so we can attach each one of our 2 mounting bolts once everything's properly aligned. Just have to maneuver this as necessary. Now I can see the window channel is making its way up along the window there. We're going to continue on sliding this up as necessary so we can align the mounting hardware. Start it in. So I've got one of my 10mm bolts down along the bottom. I'm just wiggling this, try to get this aligned. Okay, there's that one. Let's make our way up to the next piece of hardware up top. Now that I have them both started in, I'm going to go ahead and snug them up. Right there is bottomed out. We'll just take it a tiny bit further. We do want to make sure that's secured. Continue on to the next mounting bolt. Bottomed out. Just a tiny bit further there. Let's make our way back inside that door. We're going to attempt to give that window channel a quick wiggle. It should not move around in any way. Now, before we put on our inside panel, the next thing I like to do is just have a quick look at my window channel one more time here. I want to confirm that I do not have any wires or anything the like twisted around this, in which case they could potentially get damaged as we function the window down or even up. This looks good. Now, as we start bringing this panel up, close to being in the proper positioning, of course you remember we do have several cables and we also have our rod making its way through here with our wiring harness. Some of these did have a rubber grommet, in which case we'd want to make sure that we resecure each one of those rubber grommets. Typically, you may have to reach behind this panel, carefully start pushing them through as needed. Start with my wiring harness one down here. Press that through. There's that one. Of course, I'll situate it once everything's in place. Now I'm making my way up this way. Okay. We have one more rubber grommet in this area here. As for that rubber grommet, it's typically easiest if you go ahead and hold up this panel. So I'm just going to go ahead and start in one of my mounting bolts. That should prevent this from falling down while we continue on. I'm not tightening it, I'm just starting it in, but I'm leaving it loose. Now we can start getting that rubber grommet into the proper positioning. Just using a small pocket screwdriver, prying it out. Just double check each one of these as we continue on. We'll make sure, of course, we resecure this. This is just going to fit directly into the port. We want to leave the larger flange side on the outside here closest to us. Now let's continue on to the other 6 of our 7 mounting bolts making their way around. We're leaving the last 2 out of the 9 out because those are for the inside door handle. We'll start them all in, then we can snug them up. Start up at the top. Let's continue on with our wiring harness. I'm going to secure this, making its way across here. We do have one mounting area that's going to slide in there. And then we'll continue on down towards the connector. We have another mounting area. And then, of course, the 2 areas for the connector itself as we plug that in down at the bottom. So with that said, let's go ahead and line this up, press it in. There's one. The other one's right under here. Secure that wire. So as we continue down, the cable has come free from its mounting point right here, so I'm just going to slide that in as well. We have our mounting point for the wiring harness. Press that in. Now typically before I align this with the door and lock that in, I like to make sure I reconnect my electrical connector first. So I'm just going to bring that up here. We're going to align it so the locking tab area is properly aligned. Press it together. After our audible click, a light tug to confirm it's secured. We're going to lock it in. Press that red locking tab down. Now we can align this with the door. You can see the 2 ports. Line it up, press it in. Double check, make sure everything's secured in place here. Just double check, make sure that can function as it needs to. Now we can go ahead and get this up to being in position. Just bring it up. Once you feel as though you have it in the proper positioning, continue on to all 5 of your mounting bolts. Let's start with this forward mounting bolt. We'll leave that loose, continue on to all others. They're all started in. I'm going to start tightening these. I like to start with the 10mm bolts first. We'll secure the cable in this area. Now at this point, let's start lowering the window glass down into the fully seated position in the window regulator. As we bring the glass down, we need to make sure that the mounting nuts are on the inboard side here, on the opposite side of the window regulator from the window glass. Then we can snug those up. This can be easiest if you have a helper. Down nice and slow. So here we go, we're getting close now. Okay, so this side right here does look like it's seated. We'll double check this side. It's properly seated. At this point, our helper can pause. We're going to go ahead and tighten up these mounting nuts. Of course, you do want to make sure they're tight and the window will not come free from the window regulator. Before we go any further, let's reconnect our window switch. Turn the key to the on position, and then we're going to test the functionality of the window switch, the window regulator, and confirm everything functions properly and the window's not binding in any way. Perfect. Go ahead and turn off key power and disconnect the window switch. Now, as far as the wiring harness for our window switch and the seat heater, we're going to make sure that we re-secure it to this inside panel. We're just going to take that wire, we'll slide it right into its proper grooves here. Should fall into position fairly easily. As far as this door panel is concerned, let's have a quick look at the inboard side. Now, while I look in here, what I'm looking for is the mounting hardware. You're going to find that there's several locking tabs making their way all the way around this panel. We need to pay attention to that. Up along the top area, as you remember during the removal process, I had mentioned that there's a lip. That lip needs to go up and over the window channel during the installation. Start bringing this into position. I'm starting up at the top. I'm swinging it down. Just a couple light taps along the top. At this point, we should be able to carefully start aligning everything else, and then we'll tap this into position along the door as well. If it feels like it's binding in any way, something might not be properly aligned, just readjust and then continue on with the installation. Tapped in. All right, let's just double check to make sure it's secured all the way around. Now in this area, let's reattach the electrical connectors for our window switch and for our seat heater switch. Line it up, press it in, audible click. Same process for the next. Now it's time for our protective panel. This does have some locating and locking tabs on it. We're going to line it up, we'll press it in, and we'll have 2 screws on the outboard side there. Make sure that's seated. That one started. They're both started in. Let's go ahead and snug them up. Now let's continue on with this upper corner bracket. We're just going to take this, we'll line it up and tap it into position. Double check, make sure that's secured. Okay, friend, we finished our installation. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.